Hey guys, and welcome back to another lesson. You might be familiar with the saying by George Orwell from his book The Animal Farm that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. There's an analog of this in music, which is all scale degrees are equal, but some are more equal than others. I'll explain what this means in just a bit, but let me start by playing a short bit melody that is known as the One-Note-Samba. It sounds kind of like this. Now, what makes this melody unique is really, as its name implies, it kind of uses one repeated note over somewhat complex chord changes. And it still sounds pretty good. Now, let's delve a little bit deeper into this. And let's start by looking at the C major scale, which is the scale on which this progression or melody I just played is built on. So the C major scale is made out of the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, which are given numbers, also called the scale degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is 1 again. Now, it turns out that the first degree, also called the tonic or the root, and the fifth degree have this kind of unique character about them in that they kind of fit with almost any chord progression or any chord you play in the scale. Now, let me start by demonstrating this in a more systematic manner by taking the C major scale and building all of the chords you can play, all of the simple triads you can play on the C major scale. These are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and again C major. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the root, the first degree, to, as I play these chords successively. Here's C major. Here's D minor. So I'm really playing just D minor here, and I'm doubling it in the right hand, and I'm adding the root. E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and back to C major. That actually sounds pretty good. If I use slightly more sophisticated voicings, it can even sound better. Let's do the same thing, now using the fifth degree over each of these chords. Again, I'm not going to use the root position necessarily, but I am going to play triads. I might be playing inversions or doubling some of the notes. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C major again. Again, sounds pretty good on all of these chords. And as before, if you choose to use more complex sus voicings and so on, it can even sound more cohesive. Now, why does this work? Well, it's really a question that you should ask a neuroscientist or maybe a question about the way our brain perceives what is harmonious and what is not. One simple way of looking at this is that these two notes tend to sort of be shared by many, many different chords. So let's say this fifth degree in the C major scale, it's part of the C major chord. If you take the D minor chord, it's the 11th degree, so it's like an extension of D minor. It's part of the E minor chord. It's part of the F major 9th chord, the 9th degree. Part of the G chord, G major chord. It's the 7th degree of the A minor chord. And with B diminished, it just makes it a G dominant 7. Both of these also kind of, the root is kind of like the center tonality of the scale, and the fifth degree tends to want to go to the root. So again, it's a very strong degree. But really, the answer is probably more complex than I can do it justice in this short video, and also lies beyond my realm of expertise. Now, let's see how we can use it in different situations. Let's take a simple chord progression, which would be a C major, A minor, D minor, and G major. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this progression, but first of all use inversions and keep the upper note playing either the fifth degree consistently or the first degree consistently. So either playing a G on top or playing a C on top. So let's see how it sounds when I add the fifth degree of the C major scale. Not too bad, sounds pretty cohesive, right? C major, A minor, which becomes an A minor 7th the moment I add this G up here. This D minor with this added 11th. And G, or you can play a G dominant 7. Doesn't really make that much of a big difference. Let's do the same thing, same progression, but playing the first degree, the tonic, the C note on top. C major, A minor, D minor, which and as I add the C becomes a D minor 11th, D minor 7th, and a G major chord, but I'm just sticking this C above. It sounds good. And you can see that in this case as well, the root, the first degree, kind of cohesively brings the entire progression together again. Let's take another example. In this case, we're going to use chromatic motion. So this progression is in E minor, E flat major, D minor, D flat major, and a C major. You can think of the E flat major and the D flat major as tritone substitutions. Now, if you don't know what this means, don't sweat it too much. It's not this big of a deal. You can look up other videos of mine to sort of get familiar with this. But you can think of starting out from a progression which is an E minor to an A major to a D minor to a G major to a C, and substituting the A major for the E flat major and the G major for the D flat major. Now, let's play this progression, but keeping the fifth degree of the scale up on top. That's pretty good. It adds cohesiveness. I can add the bass, and for the bass I can either play the bass of the chord. So more interestingly, I can play the bass using the tritone substitutions. So I can do an E, A, D, G, and C. So it will sound like this. And I'm playing for just not just the bass, but also the bass and the 7th degree. So E, A, D, G, C. Again, the same thing works if you keep the root on top, the 1st degree. The 1st and the 5th also can be used when you solo over chord changes. So let's say you have a simple E minor to an A minor to a D minor to a G to a C. You can see that as I play the chord, I can pretty much strike the root and the 5th anytime I want, and it will sound kind of okay or even good. Of course, you can't just play the root and the 5th, that sounds very repetitive, but they're sort of safe havens. You can always resolve to them, and it will almost always likely sound good. The same idea can be used for minor scales. Let's take a look at the A, let's say natural minor scale. And again, you can play these different chords on the A natural minor scale. And here the root is, the 1st degree is an A, and the 5th degree is an E. And as before, you can play an A minor, A minor, D minor, E minor, A minor, with the root on top, or A minor, D minor, E minor, A minor. So the same ideas can be applied to minor progressions as well. And let me play a simple progression, a minor progression, which would be an A minor to a C dominant 7, to an F major, to a B minor, to an E major. First of all, keeping the root on top as I change chords, and then keeping the 5th degree, E, on top as I change chords. So So this shows that this idea also applies to minor scales as well. Let me finish up by sort of maybe pointing out something interesting from an unexpected direction. And this has to do with the music of John Williams, the famous composer who wrote the music to many of the greatest blockbusters in the 20th and 21st centuries. And John Williams, for example, if you take a look at his melodies, he makes use of these 1st and 5th degrees as sort of very powerful notes when writing his melodies. For example, if you think about the opening to the Superman melody, it sounds something like. So you can see he alternates between 5 and 1. If you think about the actual main theme for Superman, it's so you can see that the first, I'm playing everything in C major. So the first degree and the fifth degree sort of sound as very powerful resolutions in the melody itself. The same can be said for, let's say, the Star Wars main theme. So you can see that when he opens it, his sort of main notes are the first and fifth, and he has a transition and 1, 5, 1, 5. So again, a testament to the sort of strong power behind the first degree and the fifth degree, and just how powerful they are, not only harmonically, but also when writing melodies. That's it. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.